Welcome back to AM Agenda. Joining me on our panel of politicians this morning, the Parliamentary Secretary for Employment, Jason Clare. Good morning. And the Shadow Housing Minister, Scott Morrison. Good morning to you. We'll get to what's been happening in this building in a few minutes, but first I want to get your reaction to this unfolding tragedy we're seeing in Papua New Guinea. You both, of course, walked the Kokoda track just a few months ago together. Jason, should we be surprised that it is taking so long to try and locate this plane? How bad is the terrain around there?
Well, it's wild and it's difficult. Bush everywhere. Trying to find a plane there is going to be exceptionally difficult, and that's why every resource needs to be thrown at it. And I've seen the Prime Minister on television this morning saying what resources are being sent to Papua New Guinea. That's the right thing to do. Like every Australian in the country, we're worried about the situation up in Papua New Guinea. Because we've trekked only recently, I think like every trekker, we feel a real association with the track, and we know just how difficult the terrain is up there. As soon as we were told in Parliament what had happened, we both ran back to our office, rung out the people we know in Papua New Guinea to know what was going on the ground there, and found out through the course of the day that the plane that flew us back from Kokoda back to Port Moresby was one of the planes in the air yesterday. Fortunately, that plane landed safely, but our thoughts today with the families of those that are still missing. They must be going through absolute hell today.
Well, there is a lot of discussion about the plane that is now missing and the safety of the sort of planes. You guys were on a similar type of plane. How did you feel on it? Just describe what it's like for us.
Well, I've flown in lots of different planes, in many different places, and there was nothing about that one that caused me any great concern. And more importantly, we had young people with us who were responsible for and felt very, very safe. But as Jason says, this is an incredible environment, and when you add to that the difficulties of the weather and other things, then people have to be very aware of the dangerous nature of this. But I share Jason's view. I can only empathise with those families who are sitting there wondering, and I think they would be greatly encouraged, as I was and Jason was, when we hear the news that, as the Prime Minister said, throwing every asset at it. I think that is the right response, and we give him strong support in that. And I think the High Commissioner as well, Jason, has been doing a great job in trying to keep people advised and informed of what's happening, so we only hope and pray for good news.
We all hope that happens sooner rather than later as well. Moving on to what has been happening in the building this week, of course, Parliament's returned now after the long winter break. Scott, yesterday we heard that in the Coalition party room there were grunts of approval when it was decided that the Coalition will vote against the government's ETS legislation tomorrow, but it didn't seem like there was any sort of consensus coming out as to what direction the Coalition should be taking after that.
No, I don't think that's the case at all. I think there's a very strong direction about where we're going from here. We want the government to negotiate with us. We've asked them to do that. They refused to do it. Penny Wong hasn't even picked up the phone to Andrew Robb since before the vote in the House of Representatives. So that doesn't just demonstrate to me any willingness to engage the opposition at all. If it is presented to us unamended this Thursday and there are no changes, then of course we'll be voting it down. But what we've agreed to do now is go forward in seeking negotiations with the government based on what the Frontier report has said and what our pre-existing policy has already been, because a large part of what's in that Frontier report is already policy. The position on agriculture, the position on carbon offsets, the position on green carbon and issues such as this, it's already in there, and our position and the 9 points we set out to negotiate are all there. Positions on the emissions-intensive export-exposed industries are all there in our policy. The government doesn't want to talk to us, and we don't know why.
But Malcolm Turnbull has said that Frontier modelling will form the basis of a new climate change policy. So why are you expecting...
He didn't say that. No.
Is that not right?
No. What Malcolm
So the policy now that you have is the policy that you'll be taking to the next election and will be sitting down with the government to discuss?
The Frontier report adds value to what we've already said and what we've already done, and it introduces more design elements that we want to talk to the government about. But the issue here is the government just simply doesn't want to talk to us. And if I take the example of John Howard with the GST, we took it to election in '98. We took that position. We were successful at that election, and John Howard did everything imaginable to get that bill through the Senate. He talked to the Democrats, he engaged them. There's even that amazing story of trying to find a staff for a chamomile tea in the middle of the night. Now, These guys won't even pick up the phone. So I can't see how serious they are about their bill if they're not prepared to negotiate.
Jason, is it right that the government is refusing to sit down with the opposition until there are actual amendments presented?
Well, John Howard is a good example because John Howard actually committed at the last election to introduce an emissions trading scheme. He showed the leadership that's needed in the Liberal Party to get them across the line. If John Howard was still the leader of the Liberal Party, we'd be pushing forward with emissions trading scheme. Malcolm Turnbull needs the strength of leadership that John Howard showed to get his party to support an emissions trading scheme. There was never a bill.
It was Malcolm's proposal.
Malcolm never had a bill. And the problem here is that you can't negotiate with someone who doesn't know where they stand. When Malcolm Turnbull was a lawyer, when he worked for Kerry Packer, he'd have to get authorisation before he could act, when he could negotiate, or before he appeared in court. If we were to sit down with the opposition at the moment, we don't know what they stand for. They've said in press conferences, they've said in Parliament, they've said on many occasions that the Frontier Report is not opposition policy. As soon as it's policy, craft an amendment. It's not hard, it's very simple. Get into the Senate, move it. We'll sit down with you and negotiate the details. But you can't negotiate with somebody who doesn't know what their policy is.
That's an excuse.
No.
That is an absolute
excuse. Where are the amendments? Are there going to be some amendments crafted, or do you expect the government to come up with them?
There'll be amendments crafted, but the government is not prepared to consider anything before this Thursday. They're not prepared to even delay the vote on this bill. Why does this bill have to be voted on Thursday? There is no reason for this bill to be voted on Thursday. If the government was willing to defer a further vote on this bill, then we could go forward.